see on that, or a more offensive Terra type. And Porygon too, kind of a throwback with the ground Terra type from early on in the regulation. But let's see how these players are going to match up against each other. Double Incineroar on the field, and it looks like Juan Manuel is going to lead at least the Tailwind option with that Vivillon. But of course, having the Incineroar and the Golden Go, that's a safety goggles Incineroar and a good as gold Golden Go Vivillon. Not having a lot of options here, except to set that Tailwind.
Well, exactly. There's a couple of interactions that we do want to note. Edu's Incineroar did actually move first with his Intimidate, so it may give Juan an indication that maybe you want to try to go for like a reaction sort of play, anticipating the fake out, or maybe knowing Edu, he sort of does do a very good job in reading into, let's say, Protects or Ghost Terra, so he may as well even go for the knockoff here, break the Focus Sash on the Vivillon, and perhaps start setting up with Golden Go, but you just need to be a bit cautious of the Incineroar over on the other side. We know that Juan's Incineroar doesn't have Ghost Terra, so it will get threatened by that fake out, henceforth why we actually see the switch out.
Yep, Incineroar has to switch out, actually bringing in the Ursaluna, so trying to get the Ursaluna in, try to get the burn going with that Flame Orb. Vivillon just going to protect itself. There's the fake out into the Incineroar on the switch in. Instead, it hits the Ursaluna as a Make It Rain will deal good damage to that Ursaluna. Now, that's a little bit over 50%, but of course you have to take into account the speed drop, or not the speed drop, the special attack drop on Golden Go. And now you have the option with no fake out pressure to set up the Tailwind for that Ursaluna.
Yeah, I do really like that reaction there. You're able to capitalize off of the Focus Sash not being broken on Vivillon. You've got the Tailwind now support, and most importantly, Guts is now enabled for the Ursaluna. So you're in a situation where you could easily go for Earthquake here, just spam it a bit, and sort of force Eduardo's hand in, potentially going ahead and get some adaptations from his side. If he does have Rillaboom, I think this could be a good way to be able to sort of nullify the momentum over on Juan's side, which we do actually see switch in now.
Absolutely, Rillaboom will switch in to negate any of that Earthquake damage, at least cut it in half. Of course, also preserving the Intimidate on the Incineroar, while Juan Manuel will just go for the Tailwind to make that Ursaluna the fastest thing on the field. And no Earthquake at all. Knows that there's the threat of Rillaboom in the back. Just going to pick up a KO on that Golden Go with Headlong Rush.
I'm not sure what surprises me more. The fact that we saw Headlong Rush come out, which sort of makes sense there, but most importantly, no defensive maneuver from Edu's side with that Golden Go, not even trying to go for the terrestrialization, which very well could have been an option since you do have Water Terra. Sure, you would probably be able to maybe survive depending on how bulky you are, but then again, it's a Headlong Rush with Guts boosted, so might not have even been worth the trade.
Absolutely, but at least you have now the Intimidate down onto that Ursaluna, and it has dropped its defenses because of that Headlong Rush. So now by switching in the Incineroar, you get a little bit more positioning advantage. You have the fake out, you have double fake out actually on the field now to potentially stall out those Tailwind turns. There goes Ursaluna, does not want to take any more damage. Took a lot on the switch in from that Make It Rain, while Juan Manuel is going to send in his own Incineroar to get a double Intimidate down onto the Rillaboom and Eduardo's Incineroar. But Eduardo, he's played plenty of these Incineroar pivot matches. We'll just switch that Pokemon out in favor of the Sneasler. Sneasler coming in without an Intimidate debuff, but a Hurricane from Vivillon will hit the Rillaboom with that Assault Vest. Allows it to survive, but gets the confusion.
Yeah, that definitely adds a lot more variance in potentially being able to maybe either focus down on trying to break the Focus Sash with Vivillon, double up with a potential KO, or more importantly, try to get any sort of like high horsepowers into the Incineroar, because at this point, you really need to be able to exhaust the resources from Juan Manuel's side, which honestly right now has been having such a great momentum swing in this game.
Juan Manuel has been dealing big damage, but Eduardo doesn't seem phased by it. Pivoting so nicely there, the confusion doesn't matter. Already made the plan to switch the Rillaboom out for Incineroar, keep cycling those Intimidates, and here comes our first terrestrialization of the day. Ghost Terra on the Sneasler, a pretty classic Terra type. Previously, we'd been starting to see a lot of Stellar, but there it is. The Sleep Powder with the compound eyes will put that Sneasler to sleep. So Sneasler is a ghost, but it's not going to get anything with this new typing right now.
Yeah, not in the best spot. You know, 97% accuracy is definitely something that Edu doesn't have on his side to be able to avoid, but U-turn does allow a bit more of that pivoting action going for Juan. He could easily go ahead and just try to reposition the Ursaluna once again, because at this point, what is really stopping you on being able to just sort of delay each turn as long as you're able to manage the board with Edu's fake out potential? And at this situation, we know that it's not unburdened Sneasler, so it's not like you're going to be able to capitalize off of an additional speed boost. It's the poison touch. So you just want to be able to start whittling down Edu's Pokemon, and there's the momentum that's extremely in Juan Manuel's favor, except of course Tailwind's going to start expiring, so you want to be able to keep that Vivillon available for the great support it's been able to provide.
Yeah, and the Vivillon is still very safe, still has Focus Sash intact, has not taken damage just yet. And there it is. We don't see the Ghost Terra typing on the Ursaluna, means that it can just get baked out after it terastallizes into the Poison type. Another wasted turn of Tailwind, another wasted turn of offensive pressure, as Eduardo does take another Hurricane on the Sneasler this time. This Vivillon is actually doing so much damage to Eduardo's team. May need to start focusing that down.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of being able to run Focus Sash Vivillon as well. You're able to invest into its special attack and speed primarily. You don't need to put any sort of bulk with it, and it's at such a great speed tiering mark as well, where it can actually benefit with the Tailwind. And most importantly, Sneasler does not get that first turn wake, which it's so desperately needed in order to stop this Tailwind.
Absolutely. Tailwind goes up once more, and now Ursaluna is able to fire off a Facade that will knock out not quite a one-hit KO on the Incineroar, but that is all Juan Manuel needed to burst through the pivoting power of the Incineroar and the Rillaboom. And with Sneasler taking a little bit of a nap, Eduardo is so far on the back foot, needs to start thinking about game 2 right now.
Oh, 100%. And sure, Rillaboom's in right now. It's going to be able to reactivate the grass terrain via its Grassy Search ability, but most importantly, Tailwind setup right now. Juan is in such a prime position to just be able to sweep out this game 1, and hasn't even revealed a 4th Pokemon, most importantly. So having the trio core of the Vivillon, Incineroar, and Ursaluna with the very good switches has really proved to be quite pivotal, as the Hurricane just connects and picks up that Sneasler.
Isn't that just the story of this game? Eduardo has been cycling the Incineroar and the Rillaboom, faking out the Ursaluna, trying to keep it from doing big damage like we just saw it did on the Incineroar, but instead it's this Vivillon that is just using its super-powered Hurricanes. It's highly accurate, more accurate than normal Hurricanes to do damage. Hurricane is extremely powerful. That's a big damage boost for Juan Manuel, and if you're trying to just focus down the partner, you're just letting 3 Hurricanes hit all of your Pokemon.
That's what I mean, and I think we were talking a bit about it as well before the match started, Evan, where that Vivillon does have great sort of utility, but you would expect that Juan, if he feels like it doesn't work in a game 1, he could go into a game 2 scenario of maybe just adapting to a hard trick room mode. You know, he's got that flexibility because of the duality of the speed modes, and that's sort of the great benefit when it comes to this sort of team archetype, where you can play around with your pieces and sort of react based off of your opponent's play, you know, how confident they are in their own strategy, and Juan has just been able to go ahead and completely dismantle Eduardo's.
You know, I really think that Eduardo had all of the right pieces for this matchup. Unfortunately, lost the Golden Ghost so early on. Got the damage onto the Ursaluna on the switch in, but without the Golden Ghost, there was nothing to resist those Hurricanes. And even though Eduardo was able to continue to cycle the fake out pressure, you know, just those Hurricanes kept coming through and dealing enough damage. Not picking up big one-hit KOs, but 2-hit KOs.
Yeah, well, and that's sort of the thing. Like, great, sure. Fake out synergy is fantastic, but you still need to be able to dispatch the damage, right? Like, and that's unfortunately what Edu wasn't able to do. He needs to be able to get that immediate offensive pressure against and push back all of the pressure that Juan's bringing, because I wouldn't be surprised if Juan goes with the same sort of core.
You know what? I think that Eduardo only got 1 non-fake out attack off that entire game.
I think you might be right. Exactly. And we do actually see the same leads coming out right now as well, so I'm curious to see how this Golden Girl is going to try to position position itself because it really doesn't want to face this Incineroar, which of course we do know has the knockoff threat.
Yeah.
It forces Golden Go in a very awkward spot where you either go for the offensive, similar to game 1, or you have to either go on the defensive. Maybe a Terra change, maybe even a switch out, but you need to really break the focus sash on the Vivillon. You can't let it just do its thing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Eduardo is not opting to go for that defensive Terra, which does leave it vulnerable to the big damage. There's the Hurricane. It looks like Juan Manuel is going to be double targeting this Golden Go. Gets the confusion on the Golden Go as well. So even if Golden Go is able to get this nasty plot off, it may not be able to do damage at all.
Okay, but no, it was able to successfully go through it. Now it is a +2 special attack, but it's this scenario where Edu's trying to bait Juan Manuel in anticipating that he's going to play defensive. He's going for the offensive. We do see Incineroar over on Edu's side actually once again confirming it is faster than Juan's Incineroar. Get the parting shot off first.
Absolutely, gets the parting shot off, gets -2 on the attack of the opposing Incineroar. Also would have caught a -1 on the Ursaluna on a switch in, but there's the knockoff. At -2, Golden Go is just barely able to survive there. Loses the life orb, does have the nasty plot boost, but of course is confused.
Yeah, and I think that's why Juan wanted to focus with the double up, just in case there is a terrestrialization adaptation there, and you're able to still get very good damage, neutral damage onto it. And it still would have led to the scenario where Golden Go has like 1/5 of its health remaining. That's really what you want to do. You want to exhaust Edu's resources that are available, but having Sneasler now, fake out pressure, you've got potential of being able to even threaten the Incineroar with a close combat KO if it is, of course, adamant and based around the training of the Incineroar's bulk.
Yeah, and the Incineroar on Juan Manuel's side, of course, Incineroar very rarely runs Protect, if ever at all.
Yep.
Vivillon has the ability to protect itself, but there's no switches or anything. That's a one-hit KO from the Sneasler. Picks up the KO on Incineroar.
Down and
Juan
out.
Manuel just leaves it in there to take a close combat.
And the Vivillon does have the option of going for Tailwind, but it opts for the Sleep Powder. It's like, no, I need to be able to slow down the momentum that Edu's really picking up on in this game too. And Golden Go hasn't moved yet, but can it move?
Can you do it, Golden Go?
Come on, oh, it does, and it makes it rain, and it brings the Vivillon down to 1 hit point.
And here we go. Eduardo is now in a fantastic position compared to the previous game. Now, because of the Focus Sash, Vivillon will still be able to get Tailwind off because it put the Sneasler to sleep.
Yep.
But at least the pressure of that Incineroar is now off the field, and Eduardo still has all 4 of his Pokemon. Going to be very difficult to make the most of it, though, with that sleeping Sneasler and the confused Golden Go that are both going to be slower than everything after this Tailwind.
Yeah, and I guess there is the Rillaboom. You want to be able to halve the Earthquake damage output, because at this point, why do you not go for that if you're a Juan? You want to be able to deal with a bit more damage and break the Focus Sash of that Sneasler and even threaten the Golden Go. But I would expect a bit of a defensive play finally coming out of the Golden Go, potentially. But then again, it's Edu.
Yeah, this is a lot of bad options for Edu. That's going to be the Incineroar switching in to get a -1 on the Ursaluna, a double switch to get both the reduced attack and the reduced potential Earthquake damage with Rillaboom coming in. This is scary for the Rillaboom as well because there is options in the future for Hurricanes, but here comes the Tailwind, here comes the attack from Ursaluna. The Earthquake will have its damage reduced by the grassy terrain, and because of that Intimidate, actually the Incineroar can just shrug it off. What kind of super effective attack was that?
Not very effective, I think, even though the game mechanics would question otherwise. But I think being able to not commit to a facade there, perhaps, it was a bit readable.
Hadn't been burned yet.
Exactly, and the most important thing here is that, let's say, if Juan wants to be able to further sustain this Vivillon, there's the options of Ghost Terror. I don't think it would be the best for him, but in anticipation of, let's say, the fake outs, Rillaboom is still there to lock up with a Grassy Glide, so I feel like that slot is going to have a guaranteed damage dealt onto it.
Absolutely, and the 4th Pokemon we're finally seeing will be Archaludon. This is a really strong Pokemon. However, this is not the stamina version that we have seen a lot of. It is instead the sturdy power power herb version, so it will not be able to just eat up stamina boosts from things like this grassy glide that's coming into its target. Instead, it will just take no damage because it is extremely bulky and not very effective.
It's probably going to recover its sturdy as well, I think, if it hasn't already, actually. But most importantly, it's such a great Pokemon to have in the back for that immediate sort of, I wouldn't even say glass cannon, but you've got the immediate burst damage option of going with the Power Herb, getting the Electro Shot into the Incineroar, or even playing around a bit with the Ursaluna, because now you have your two main sweepers on the field in Tailwind. Juan is primed and ready to be able to dispatch as much as it can. And of course, Incineroar, Rillaboom, we know they do not have Protect, so you just may actually weigh in the options and focus on one slot in anticipation of a switch.
Well, there is the Rillaboom switching out for Sneasler, either trying to protect the Rillaboom, recycle some of those fake outs, and or allow Sneasler an opportunity to try to wake up. It has not taken its first turn of sleep, I don't believe.
No.
So it still needs to take the first turn of sleep. There will be the Terrestrialization onto the Ursaluna. This poison typing will make it match up better against the grass typing of the Rillaboom, but it's going to be matched by a Terrestrialization on Incineroar. Incineroar will now be the ghost typing, so we have changed up the type charts dramatically for both teams.
Yeah, and I think now, of course, it's immune to those facades, but most importantly, it's not going to be able to shrug away any damage from the Archaludon, but the focus is on the Sneasler completely. It's sort of what we were saying. You can guarantee a KO on one slot if you get the double in there. So Ghost Terra, Incineroar is still going to move, probably get rotation going with Parting Shot, as we do see connects with that Archaludon, and now all of a sudden you're going to have double Fake Out potential available, or more so, I would expect, one Fake Out user and then a Golden Go on the side.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Eduardo is going to choose to bring out the Pokemon. Of course, first will be Rillaboom. That's going to reset the fake out pressure onto both the Ursaluna and the Archaludon, which is going to be crucial to getting this Tailwind off the field and allowing Pokemon like that Golden Go to start dealing big damage. Here comes Incineroar again, getting another Intimidate down onto the Ursaluna and ability to continue to cycle Parting Shots on the Archaludon. Because this is not in the rain and it only has the power up, that means there is only one special attack boost that this Archaludon can realistically get off with the Electro Shot.
And I think Edu may want to perhaps try to break the sturdy once again, because as we saw, grass terrain was able to recover that back up to 100%. And right now, you want to be able to position yourself outside of Tailwind with a Fake Out user on the side, and maybe if possible, get a nasty plot set up. But the way that Juan has managed his board state, it makes it incredibly difficult for Edu to be able to navigate through both of the main damage sweepers on the other side of the field at the same time. Absolutely.
Here comes the Electro Shot from the Archaludon. Will boost its special attack back to neutral after taking that Parting Shot from the Incineroar. Will be most likely targeting down the Incineroar instead of the not very effective damage onto Rillaboom.
Yep.
You know, the Rillaboom, I think, is the biggest threat on the field here, but taking out the cycling is so important. Incineroar, though, will not go down. 4 hit points remaining. High horsepower comes out from the Rillaboom, deals over 50% to the Archaludon, while Incineroar will get this Flare Blitz off into the Ursaluna. That was so much damage. It will knock itself out from the recoil, but that means that Eduardo has finally started to get damage down, and this is the turn that Tailwind ends.
This is so good. And I feel like Edu was trying to be able to find the positioning where it can whittle down the remaining HP of both the Archaludon as well as the Ursaluna and have Tailwind peter out in order to bring the Golden Go. And now it will really depend on speed tiering. We've got Archaludon. Naturally, it could be trained to be faster than Golden Go, but we're going to have to find out how that's based off of, because if I'm not mistaken, Evan, we did see Archaludon outspeed the Rillaboom, so that means you're not able to guarantee a high horsepower into the Archaludon and even potential damage roll to take into consideration to be able to get rid of it.
I believe that was under the Tailwind, though, so
yes.
The Rillaboom, we still are not totally sure if Rillaboom or Archaludon are faster. And the other important thing that I really want to see here is how many turns of grassy terrain are left. There is a world where Juan Manuel is able to bring the Vivillon back in. Oh no!
Draco miss!
No!
No! I would say into the Golden Go, but definitely on the side of the field as Shadow Ball focuses into the Archaludon and picks up the KO.
That's a Shadow Ball KO after a Draco miss from the Archaludon. Rillaboom's Woodhammer will connect now onto the Ursaluna. Resisted thanks to the poison typing, but enough chip damage has happened. Ursaluna goes down. It is just the butterfly against Golden Go and Rillaboom. Only a single target hurricane attack to Juan's name. That's going to bring us to a Game 3. And man, what a different game this was when Eduardo was able to do click attacks other than fake out.
I know, and that's sort of like what we're talking about, that Edu really needed to be able to bring onto the field, that immediate pressure. Obviously, we saw the Golden Go, the way that it went down was quite unfortunate in Game 1, but you sort of have to take a gamble sometimes, and Edu recognized that. He's like, okay, cool. If I can actually get the play correct, then I could really capitalize off of momentum and force a completely different board. But in that scenario, let's talk a bit about the Draco miss. If you did connect, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had around like 58 or 78 hit points of the Golden Go. Would it have been enough at neutral to pick up the KO onto a resisted Pokemon?
That's a question we may never know the answer to.
But I personally feel like maybe there might have been a good role for it.
I think with a sturdy Power Herb Archaludon, I would expect that to be able to get enough chip damage there. And that's the big thing. Juan Manuel was forced to go for the Draco Meteor. Electro Shot would take 2 turns. The Power Herb was already used up. Flash Cannon definitely isn't picking up that KO. Had to go for the 90% accurate there, forced into it. Would maybe have picked up that KO, but regardless, we also see this big turn here where the Incineroar on Eduardo's side survived with 4 hit points, and that was critical to getting the Flare Blitz damage on Ursaluna that made that win condition possible at all.
Yeah, and the fact that we're talking about an Archaludon which has Power Herb and not the Assault Vest means that it was just within range of being picked off by that Shadow Ball from the Golden Go. So a lot of very cool, interesting interactions going on there, but really just coming down to the granular level, it could have honestly gone either way, just based off of, let's say, just 1 turn difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And boy, Costa, this is exactly how I wanted to kick off day 2. 3-game set. Here we go. Incineroar Vivillon versus Incineroar Golden Go once again. And this has been the same leads for all 3 games, but all the 2 previous ones we've seen could not have gone more differently.
No, 100%. And in this scenario, you've entered the realm of mind games galore. And because it's just a compounding effect, right? From Game 1 going to Game 2, now Game 3, literally the same thing over and over again, but in terms of the Pokemon being brought. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Juan go for the same sort of play, wanting to at least try to get that Golden Go off the board, but that invites Edu to finally play a bit more defensive from turn 1.
Absolutely. And I actually really love this play that Eduardo has locked in here, getting immediate damage off with the Make It Rain and being able to cycle the Parting Shot seems fairly safe. However, Juan Manuel is not switching this time around, which means that this Make It Rain is only going to deal resisted damage into the Assault Vest Incineroar. It tanks that like a champ. Golden Go actually probably took more damage with the Life Orb recoil than it actually dealt. There's the Parting Shot there onto the Incineroar, though. That means that we are now at -2 attack on that Incineroar, and Eduardo has an opportunity to pivot here. Yeah,
it sort of like allows at least a guarantee, roughly around 40 to 60% damage being dealt now, even, of course, with taking into the factor of the super effectiveness, but it doesn't even target that. Actually, Juan going for the read of the Parting Shot, naturally going into that slot and saying, you know what, you're either going to be able to bring the Sneasler here, I can break a Focus Sash, or at least get some good chip damage onto a Rillaboom if we have that circulate. So all of a sudden, we've got Juan now with the Tailwind available next to a Guts-enabled Ursa. However, Sneasler is on the field. We've got Edu's Pokemon, which there are 3 fake out users, Sneasler, Rilla, Incin, and being able to rotate those really puts a stop in Juan's plans unless you have to commit to a Ghost Terror.
And let's be clear, this is the first time of this set Sneasler has gotten onto the field and is able to move and threaten an attack.
Yes.
It has been asleep for the entire previous 2 sets, 2 games, which is going to force out this terrestrialization from the Ursaluna. earlier.
Yeah.
This has been the choice for Juan Manuel every single time to make sure that the Ursaluna is protected from fighting type attacks. Villion is going for the Tailwind, trying to get back to that same position we were before, where Ursaluna was able to outspeed, was able to pick up a KO onto the Golden Go, but it has now been staggered in a different way than game one. Villion now taking the Make It Rain damage. The Ursaluna also taking the Make It Rain damage. It's like game one, but so different.
Oh, 100%. And I absolutely love this for Edu because you're not even caring about the -1 special attack right now. You want to break up Focus Sash and you want to whittle down Ursa's remaining HP because it's on a clock. At each end of the turn, we've got the burn damage that accumulates over time. So it just means that its longevity is further reduced the further into the game we do get. So Tailwind, sure, it's up right now, but Edu has the great synergistic options of bringing in that Rillaboom yet again. You've got another Fake Out user on the field, and you can half the damage output of the Earthquake, but this could be read into from Juan. Now you got the options of going for Hurricane or a Facade, and you need to be able to target correctly because the Golden Go, it's not going to be enough to pick up the KO onto the Ursaluna, perhaps at -2 on the Vivillon, but we're going to have to see how this pans out.
All right, well, Sneasler is going to switch out for the Rillaboom, bringing in the grassy terrain, potentially reducing Earthquake damage, as we've mentioned, but most importantly, bringing back another Fake Out pressure. Edu will also withdraw the Golden Go to bring out the Incineroar to get a crucial Intimidate down onto the Ursaluna. Keeping that Ursaluna in check now that it is under Tailwind and has the Guts boost is going to be critical. But a great call out there for Juan Manuel. Targeted down the Sneasler with Hurricane and catches the Rillaboom on the switch, and it's enough! Long Rush is enough! Not very effective damage. Who cares? I'm picking up the KO anyway. Ursaluna is on a rampage.
Yeah, and very well done from Juan. It's sort of what we were talking about. You need to start getting rid of the synergistic pieces that Edu is completely relying on and doing to a very good job with actually utilizing them to their best capabilities. However, once again, we've got Fake Out on the field. If this Sneasler doesn't incur any sort of damage, it can go back up to Focus Sash as well, which is something we need to consider. But right now, the strategy is let me slow things down for Juan, further peter out, let's say, the Tailwind, and be able to bring that momentum going, because there's not necessarily something that could directly threaten the Incineroar if it does go for the Ghost Terror that we actually see Edu taking into consideration here, because unless it's quite enough at -2 to be able to pick up in combination with the Hurricane, the Incineroar. It's going to have to be very close, though.
Yeah, and let's talk about the most consequential 7 hit points of damage that's happened so far. The U-turn into Sneasler means that that Focus Sash is not active, which makes it actually not feel safe at all. A Hurricane or a Headlong Rush or a Facade or maybe even an Earthquake could be able to pick up the KO on there, but regardless, it has to be afraid, and it has to switch out. Incineroar comes in for Juan Manuel as Vivillon is going to switch out to potentially try to get another Tailwind up in just a few turns, and here comes that Ghost Terra. Yeah,
Ghost Terra, at this point, I feel like Juan really needs to put the pedal to the metal. You need to be able to anticipate that switch, or at least focus down that slot, guarantee the KO, whether it's a Sneasler, whether it's a Golden Go, because you just start breaking things down, as we do see it does, and it does pick up the KO, leaving it now down to their final 2 Pokemon.
This Golden Go is not having a good set. It keeps getting headlong rushed, and there it goes. It is down, and that means that Eduardo is down to his final 2 Pokemon. It will be a trade, though, with the Flare Blitz picking up the KO on that Ursaluna. Easy KO. We saw the damage that it did in Game 2, and of course, after the defense drops, very much fully capable of picking that KO up. However, we now have the Fake Out pressure on Juan Manuel's side. The Incineroar is now back. Vivillon can come back in here and then potentially set up a Tailwind, potentially protect itself, or we'll see the 4th Pokemon, most likely the Archaliodon, which is going to need to be afraid of this Sneasler that has still been saved for this moment, but also still has it sturdy.
Yeah, and pivotal thing is the fact that Sneasler doesn't actually have Protect. So it either has to go for Fake Out here, or it has to go for the close combat. And we know that Juan has already utilized their Terra. So there's no Terra outing against this Archaliodon, but it does invite a potential adaptation play from Juan of going for the Protect, but I doubt that would be the case unless you switch the Incin out.
Okay, so Ensign will switch out. Vivian is coming back in. Will be able to maybe sacrifice that Pokemon. Another Protect here. Looks like Juan Manuel wants to just try and set up a new opportunity to get the Fake Out onto the Sneasler and just use this Archaludon to close out the game. Close Combat will pick up the KO on Vivian as it switches in as a sacrifice for the Fake Out pressure. And here comes another Intimidate. This Flare Blitz will whiff into the Protect, and Juan Manuel now in the complete control of this game.
Yeah, and I do love the fact that now we've got the Focus Sash is active yet again thanks to the grassy terrain.
That's right, this is the first time Sneasler has stayed out.
Exactly, and now, although, sure, the Focus Sash is on the field, I do really like Juan's position. You've got the Intimidate now down onto the Sneasler, as well as the Incin over on Edu's side. You've got the Fake Out. However, can you guarantee a KO into the Incineroar? Because there's a couple of different interactions of the Sturdy being broken potentially, as well as the Focus Sash. And I don't know, it's going to be quite close, but I feel like Sneasler is a very crucial Pokemon right now that can honestly win this game as long as Edu is able to manage the board position pressure.
It's crucial, but I don't know that Sneasler can actually do anything here. It's just going to get faked out by the Incineroar. A critical hit. The Archaludon still has the Power Herb this time, so can fire off an Electro Shot. Not even the 10% chance to miss. And there's going to be the Archaludon absorbing electricity, boosting its special attack, firing off this Electro Shot into that Sneasler. That's going to pick up the KO, and Incineroar may be the best Pokemon in the format, but it is not able to take on an Archaludon and an opposing Incineroar all by itself.
No, as we're going to see it. I was going to say respectable damage, but Evan, that is definitely not respectable damage.
Disrespectable.
Disrespectable damage. Naturally being the case because of the Intimidate cycles over on Juan's side as well. But Juan being able to absolutely do such a great job in positioning himself with that Archaludon endgame to the point where he's able to get a win against none other than our previous world champion.
And let's be clear, with this win, Juan Manuel